Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an act named JADE the Nightmare titled Crawl Inside. And if we switch over to here we have ourselves a track on YouTube and we're going to listen through this video from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go.
And now, reports of a brutal double homicide. Disturbing found footage video tonight from a home outside Denver International Airport of a man attempting a demonic ritual to summon a supernatural entity known as a succubus. Let me warn you, this content is very, very disturbing.
I mean, it's great to have the sort of cinematic approach here with like the breaking news thing and everything like that. I think it's a really cool way to start a track. I found footage kind of Blair Witch Project kind of vibe. Got their hands and arms coming from down from the ceiling. Some hella creepy stuff.
I'll show you I'm not yours now. I can't.
Sorry to interrupt, and I'll try not to do it too much because I know it's a shorter track, but just like really good. I'm blown away with the sound of the guitars, bass, drums, etc. And the vocals are nice and clear in the mix. That industrial vibe is sick, man. And the growls.
Nothing will satiate the desire to open the ribs and crawl inside and rise upon you. My love was born upon he dries the night and fall asleep, listening to the bare heartbeat for endless length. Sick romantic text full of dread and the most bloody sex. What's next? Wrap up and no lively breath and shell of blood to his blood. The beat with brave finesse into all that I see is less. No one holds on me, won't call my mess until I see him bleed. I will feed the beast, I begin to feast all of my extremities of my dogs on leash.
We got this like extreme between like these sort of underground rap vocals with like the really breathy kind of erotic sort of clean parts, and it makes sense with the whole kind of implication of there being a succubus involved and everything like that. But I think like with the breathy performance, what I mean is, but like I think, you know, JADE the Nightmare has like their roots, their influences getting into music was it like as young as like the age of 12, like into that kind of music, you know, the metal and like the rap stuff. And I think it's great that we're continuing to build on to it and that she's making it her own. And that was it. That was the track. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from JADE the Nightmare titled Crawl Inside. At face value, I think it's about someone who summoned a succubus and it's about the aftermath of that situation. You can clearly see in the video what's going on there. I got that from the video and from the lyrics, and I think there was some line at the start about "I'll show you I'm not yours anymore," as if to say maybe the succubus, the person summoned the succubus thinking that they were gonna, you know, get taken care of by them, and then the succubus took over the situation and kind of complicated it. and as you know, succubuses do, or succubi do. But I think as we went on, like the rap section talked about sexual adrenaline, what's next, or something along those lines. Because I'm going to level with you, with all due respect, clearly we know how to rap because the flow and the phrasing was good, and we were very, very consistent with our rhythms and grooves there. And I liked the performance, the kind of breathy, kind of moany kind of way of approaching the vocals and the clean parts, because it made sense with that kind of, with the very kind of central nature of everything involved here, the imagery, etc. And it was a nice contrast to just the heaviness, the filth within those guitar tones, the synth parts, the bass and drums. I just don't think I got all the words clearly, and I think part of that was the vocal style, which again, it's very difficult to do that accidentally. It was clearly a tonal design choice we did for the clean parts. We did highlight some words more clearly than others, so what I think Jade was trying to do here was have the vocals kind of overlap each other and kind of turn it into sort of like a horror show, like a horror movie soundtrack or something like that. I think that was a smart choice. It made sense. If the vocals were kind of performed in a very proper, easy to follow, vanilla kind of, everything's easy to understand and there's no weird stuff going on here, I don't think that would have suited the vibe of this track at all. So I'm glad that we had all these different vocal layers kind of over the top, kind of melding and amalgamating into each other, because it made it kind of disorienting and aided the overall aesthetic of the track, the atmosphere, with the really ferocious instrumental accompaniment stuff going on, with those downtuned power chords, the crippling distortion, the drums, those are probably like an 8-string guitar there, as well as the bass and all that. I think it's exceptional. It kind of reminds me of stuff from bands like OTEP, for example, the vocal style and such. And obviously the rapping was, again, even though I didn't get all the words clearly in the rap sections, the parts I did made sense. And I think maybe it could have just been just a little bit clearer in the mix. Like maybe that was like a mixing thing. I'm wondering if simply things were a little bit too tight there dynamically in the master chain for the vocals to have that presence there. But aside from maybe not getting all the words through clearly in the mix, which I think half of it was simply style of the performance, and it was meant to sort of be a little bit kind of overwhelming and confusing and mysterious. I think outside of that, I think the vocals were cool. I think the way that we rapped and the way that we sung matched the rest of the track well. And it was good. I think that we can clearly sing and we're comfortable with our style of performance, and I'm sure that we can do a lot of really cool stuff with that in future. I mean, outside of the vocals, the track, basically it's 2 minutes of the track with that theme or motif behind it, where we had just ferociously, cripplingly heavy guitar parts on the rhythms, with some palm muted stuff, some downtuned sort of 8-string kind of low F sharp kind of notes there, with some natural harmonics there with alternate picked, and it was wonderful. It was so heavy, and the bass line in the bottom as well just kind of bore into your eardrums, and that was wonderful, like incredibly violent as well. The drums were great. The different grooves that we had there. There wasn't a huge amount of variety with the different percussive layers, but there was enough to service what we needed from it. And I'm really happy with the tone of it overall. I think that it was nice for the drummer to kind of pocket a little bit to keep the focal point being the vocals. And the same for the guitar part. What the theme comes in so heavily with the growls and the screams. I didn't talk about that in the vocal part. There was great technique with the growled vocals. So we not only had the rapping, we had the kind of clean vocals, and then we also had the vocal fry, the growls and shrieks and stuff like that. So there's a lot of flexibility and variety in that regard on display here. I'm happy with that part of this, what Jade the Nightmare has prepared for us today for a first impression. But I think just the fact that we're kind of sticking with those low notes, the gritty kind of prog, kind of middle, kind of like alt middle, kind of chugs in the low register. It just kind of makes you sink down into the abyss a little bit and kind of dwell in the misery of the situation there. And I think that was a smart move in regards to like the progressions, which were typically power chords, with most of the color and the melody coming from the clean sung parts. So that's why I suppose part of the focus is on the vocals, because once you get used to getting to that motif, you just kind of repeats, and it's enough. And credit to Jade the Nightmare, we did have ourselves the rap part at the part I think was most appropriate. Usually you kind of split a track in three. For the first third of it, it was kind of the news report, and then you obviously had like the Blair Witch Project, video going on, which shows Jade at the end, and then she just comes and smash like that, and it's so visceral. And then of course you have the clean parts over top, and then again the rapping in the third part, and there was just enough to kind of, with the clean vocals carrying us out at the end, there was just enough to keep us interested and engaged throughout. I think if we hadn't had the rapping, the track would have been less effective. I'm glad that we're harkening back to our roots there, what we know and what we're comfortable with and what we're clearly experienced with, and it's dope. And I suppose another cool thing was that we had that rapping in the lower range, and that again just shows an actual tonal range between the two to go with that head voice for the cleans and the chest voice for the rapping part was sensational as well. I think the fact we were in and out with the main motif that we had at the 2 minutes was smart. You got a taste of what was to come. It was very much an audio-visual visual experience, and I think it's one of the most professional first impressions I've had to an artist. So this is definitely a case of having a music video here where the medium was well utilized. I don't think there was a note out of place. I think there was enough sort of demented, decrepit elements within the way the instruments were played to match the severity of the vocal performance and the story and the themes there. And so I guess finally it's just the studio recording, the mixing and mastering, the production side of things, where the only thing I've basically mentioned is that I don't know if the rap parts were clean enough in the mix. And I think the thing I liked is with the relative minimalism of the theme there. Again, the musical theme of the track with the combination of the guitars, bass, drums, synths, etc., which was it was like the force of a neutron star on you. It just cripples you with like the weight of the power of those riffs. With the vocals being so flexible in the various ways they're performed, you really need the production tight. And aside from the comments I made on maybe, the rap parts, I just didn't get the rap parts as clearly in the mix as I wanted to. That potentially could just be because I need to just have more time just to listen through it, but I just wasn't getting through all the words clearly. And I knew that we could rap well. So again, it's just maybe a little bit of just clarity in the upper frequencies of like the rap track or something like that. But aside from that, that's again like an EQing thing. Everything else is dope. Like I was really happy with the sound of the clean vocals, the growls and shrieks, because clearly we know how to do our post-production side of things. The guitars were fantastic on the sides, the bass rumbling in the low end and the center, the drums spread around the stereo field and the frequency spectrum, percussive, a little bit of side chaining there, enough to kind of keep us moving forward. And anything else that was kind of blistering away in there was well leveled and very reasonable. And I like the fact that we managed to not only nail the leveling and the effects change of everything like that within the song part of it, but also the first part of the track with like, again, the video recording and the newscaster thing sounded professional as well. It sounded like I was watching a well-presented TV show or a movie, and it was great. And I think that you need to, when you're going to do something at this level, again, especially as a first impression, you're going to have a hell of a lot better chance at a career if you're able to nail every single element than if you like let one slip by. And I don't think we did. See, I think the leveling was good. I'm just wondering if it was like an EQ thing or something like that with the rapped vocal parts. Outside of the rapped bits, I think everything else is fantastic. Like in regards to leveling, things were tight dynamically, and I think there was dynamic range to it, but again, I'm wondering if that was also part of why I couldn't get the rapped parts through clearly. And then it's just basically, it was still nice and loud, so the limiting compression was handled. This is effectively my review of this track from Jade the Nightmare, titled Crawl Inside, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please you could check out Jade's various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need the help more than ever, thought of great stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.